You are live. Welcome to the shoyshow. It is August 6th, 2026. I hope you're excited. I'm excited. We only got one of these days. Time's running out. Got to get on with the show. And our first topic today, it's a doozy. Should baseball have a salary cap, or is winning just about who spends the most? What do you think? What side do you think I'm on? I'm on the money, baby. Spend that money. Spend that cheese. What, you don't like this picture? You don't like the Dodgers winning back-to-back championships? Don't complain to me. Complain to your owner, okay? They're all billionaires. There's revenue sharing. And we're going to get into it, but stop being a crybaby. See, I'm a Mets fan. For the Mets and the Yankees and the Toronto fans out there and the Red Sox, yeah, the teams that spend the money, take a look at this. What are you crying about? $266 million for the Philadelphia Phillies? They're in fourth place in payroll? What you crying about? We got a bunch of fans out there crying. Your teams are spending an exorbitant amount of money. You want to be Miami, Cleveland? You want to be the Athletics? Those teams ain't competing. The White Sox are. Milwaukee is. They're down there at 19-20. It's still $134 million. We talking peanuts here, or we just being relative? What are you complaining about? Oh, it's not fair. Wait until the next CBA. It comes down to money. That's why Manchester United, that's why Manchester City, that's why Arsenal, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid, that's why these teams compete. You gotta spend money. You can say a lot about the Dallas Cowboys. They compete, kinda, sorta, but they spend the money. But guess what? They're making money. So the only thing that you're really out as a fan, or as an owner for that matter, is a championship. The team's making money. You're just not joyous about it, because you don't have a trophy to brag about. Boo-hoo! What you crying about? I celebrated when the Mets got Steve Cohen. Oh, yeah. This man right here, love him or hate him, he's very controversial, does a lot of things. Billionaire hedge fund owner. When the Wilpons sold to Steve Cohen, I said within 5 years, we're going to have a championship. Am I wrong? Yeah, whatever. So what? We got money on our side. Money buys championships. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. And again, all the crying that I'm hearing is from the Dodgers fans and the Mets fans and it's not the Dodgers fans, but all the crying that I'm hearing is from the top 10 teams. Houston, Chicago, the Padres. Oh, we can't compete. Dodgers are just going to keep winning championships. What is it that the Dodgers are doing that your team isn't doing? Blame your ownership. This is the way it works. We don't need a salary cap to have parity. It doesn't work like that in any sport. You think it works like that. It doesn't work like that. It always comes down to money. And by the way, even if you have a salary cap, you can still go into the second apron, third tier, whatever you want to call it, in whatever sport. You can still pay an extraordinarily high luxury tax and get away with it. So the billionaire owners are still going to be able to have the highest payrolls. I'm not saying it's rigged. I'm just saying that your team needs to spend some more money. So let's get into it. Because everyone's screaming, the Dodgers are buying championships. If the Yankees were winning right now, if the Yankees won, and oh, by the way, okay, I don't really like talking shit about the Yankees, especially because I'm a Mets fan. But in the last 25 years, you guys got one ring. The Yankees got one ring. So, yeah, close calls. Mets had a couple close calls. I'm just saying, take it easy. All right. You want to say the Dodgers are buying championships? What team isn't? Give me one team across any sport that's not buying a championship. And if you want to say the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA, look at them, small market team, that's an edge case. That's an aberration. That doesn't happen. Who are the teams that actually hang the banners? It's always the Lakers, it's the Celtics, it's the Spurs. It's the same teams. It's either a really good organization or they spend a lot of money or both. So we have another aggressive offseason and trade deadline. And everyone's asking the same question. Should Major League Baseball finally introduce a salary cap? Now, before we even answer that, take a step back because baseball is actually the odd one out. There are 4 major professional sports leagues in the United States, the NFL, NBA, NHL, and baseball. 3 of them have salary caps, 1 doesn't. So why? And does having a salary cap actually make sports fairer? Or is that just something that fans tell themselves? Now let's start with how these leagues actually work because a lot of people mix them up together. The NFL has what's called a hard salary cap. There's a limit on what teams can spend on player salaries. Teams restructure contracts all the time. They move money around, push money into future years, but ultimately there's a cap that they have to stay within. However, there's also money that you can pay under the table, some dark money. We saw that with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers, but nobody's going to mention that here. The NHL works similarly to the NFL. The NBA is slightly different. The NBA has what's called a soft salary cap. Teams can actually spend above it, but once you start crossing certain thresholds, things get expensive very quickly. You pay luxury taxes, and today there's even a bigger issue, the second apron. So once you're above that second apron, the penalties aren't just financial anymore. You lose flexibility. Trades become harder. There are restrictions on how you can improve your roster. You lose tools that other teams still have. So yes, an owner can spend more in the NBA, but the league makes sure there's a real price to pay. So when Knicks owner Jim Dolan talked about avoiding that second apron, some fans thought he was just trying to save money, but that's only part of it. The second apron doesn't just cost cash. It makes building a championship roster much harder because you can essentially lose draft picks. So you can essentially have your draft pick slotted down or moved further away. So you would lose draft spots. So you can essentially lose draft spots if you move into the second apron. Now let's look at baseball. Baseball doesn't have a salary cap. Instead, it has something called the competitive balance tax. Most fans simply call it the luxury tax. There isn't a spending limit, but if an owner wants to spend $350 million or $400 million, they can. They'll just pay increasingly larger taxes. Eventually, there are draft penalties, other financial penalties, but there is no rule saying that they can't do it. So here's the first question. Does the luxury tax actually stop rich teams from spending? Because if an owner is worth 10 billion or 20 billion, does another 50 million or either 100 million really change anything? Apparently not. Let's look at the Dodgers. Every time people think they can't possibly add another superstar, they find another one. And then, of course, fans lose their minds. But here's where I think the conversation gets interesting. Are the Dodgers actually breaking baseball? Or are they simply playing by the rules better than everyone else? You got to complain to your owner first. If you're a Mets fan, if you're a Yankees fan, can you really complain about this? Steve Cohen owns the Mets. The Yankees generate enormous amounts of revenue every year. Those organizations have tremendous financial resources. They absolutely can spend, and they do. But sometimes they're spent poorly. So what's the difference between the Mets and the Yankees and then the Dodgers? It's just mismanagement, right? They allocated their resources better. Am I mad at the Dodgers for doing that? No, I don't care if they win 5 straight. They're not just spending their money. They're identifying the talent. They're developing the talent. They're making smart trades, signing the right players, structuring contracts creatively. Those aren't the same thing. Are the Mets and Yankees doing that? Clearly not as good as the Dodgers. Of course, money helps here, but money doesn't guarantee smart decisions, and it certainly doesn't guarantee championships. It just puts you in the best spot to try to win one. Now let's flip the argument. Imagine you're a Royals fan or a Marlins fan. You're rooting for the Pirates. How are you supposed to compete? If the Dodgers afford almost anybody, how is that fair? Should championships simply go to whichever billionaire wants them the most, or whichever group or whichever ownership group is willing to spend the most? That's a legitimate question. But then I have another question. Is the real problem the Dodgers or owners who refuse to spend? Because baseball already has revenue sharing. National television money gets shared. Luxury tax money gets redistributed. The league already tries to move money from larger markets to smaller ones. So if smaller market teams are receiving additional revenue, why aren't all of them investing more aggressively in their rosters? It's the same thing that happens in the English Premier League. Once you get promoted to top flight, once you get promoted to the top league, you get over $100 million to spend on your roster. If you get relegated to the second league, you lose that money. So what's going on with these owners? Is it because they can't? Or because they choose not to? They clearly have the money. Should Major League Baseball force them to spend more? That's why people are calling for salary caps, but we also have salary floors. That's another proposal that's been discussed over the years. People always talk about a salary cap. In other words, if we're going to stop the Dodgers from spending too much, should we also stop some owners from spending too little? Because if you take a look at this, this is the 2026 payroll. Right now, they're proposing the bottom teams spend more anyway, and you're going to make the top tier teams spend less. And oh, by the way, they'll find a way. They just won't make it public. There's always a way. Because they don't necessarily have to give you a salary. They could do what they did with Lionel Messi, and they can give you a portion of ticket sales. They can give you part ownership of the team. There are ways to bring in big name players. You can get creative. So who's really benefiting here? Of course, you have to look at the players. This part's always forgotten for some reason. Fans often want salary caps because they want a competitive balance. They want parity. Owners often want salary caps because they don't want other teams outspending them. But players usually don't. Think about it. If you're Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, or Tarek Skubal, why would you want someone telling teams they aren't allowed to pay you your market value? Salary caps generally reduce what players can earn. Every dollar owners can't spend is potentially a dollar players don't make. So when people say baseball needs a salary cap, you have to ask who benefits. The fans? I would argue that the more money you spend, the better chance you have. So that would actually be the antithesis to what fans want. The owners? What does the owner want? Does the owner want money? Or does the owner want a championship? You could make the argument that if you win championships, you make more money because your team would be more popular. You would generate more ticket sales, more jersey sales, merchandise, etc. It would propel you to the global stage. However, some owners don't really care about that. They're going to make money either way. All of these teams are profitable. They all make money. The teams that say they don't, it's bullshit. And the players, again, they don't want a salary cap. I really don't believe that these people, I think the argument is always out there that we want a salary cap, but I think these teams actually don't want a salary cap. Case in point, let's say you are Minnesota, and Minnesota all of a sudden gets a billionaire owner, and Minnesota all of a sudden has a $300 million payroll, and Minnesota wins a World Series. Are you going to be complaining about a salary cap? Hell no. You're going to say, yeah, it's about damn time we spent that money. Either way, if your team wins a World Series, ticket sales are going to go up. Merchandise sales, merchandise prices, ticket prices, merchandise prices, they're going to go up. You got to spend money. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. Now let's compare the leagues. The NFL probably has the most parity. Every season, most fan bases honestly believe they have a chance. The NHL also has incredible parity. NBA does have salary caps, yet dynasties still happen. You have Michael Jordan's Bulls, Kobe Shaq Lakers, the Warriors. Now, of course, in the NBA, teams are extremely worried about the second apron because of the draft considerations and implications. And in baseball, people say money buys championships. But does it? Does it? I mean, we just went through the argument. It buys you opportunities. It buys depth. It buys more chances. But baseball is also one of the strangest sports there is. How many times have you seen a team win 100 games and then lose a 5-game playoff series? Wild card teams get hot and suddenly they're in the World Series. There are no guarantees in this sport. You can hit the ball right on the screws and it can find somebody's glove. That's the nature of baseball. So the highest payroll doesn't automatically win. It slightly improves the odds. But I'm actually curious what else does. He's just exploiting the system. I'm actually not mad at Trump about his taxes. If the problem that rich teams are spending too much, if that's the real issue, how do we not look? I mean, because again, if you look at this, is the problem that teams are spending too much? Because look at this 2026 payroll. Half of the teams are spending over what is the suggested salary floor. That's what they're going to suggest at the CBA. Half the teams are not. So what's the problem here exactly? To me, you could make an argument either way. I mean, it's literally split right down the middle. Half the teams are spending too much. Half the teams are not spending enough. And actually, if you look at what's going to be proposed, and I'll flash this up on screen really quick, the proposed salary cap is going to be, let's say, $250 million. $250 million. Here's the argument for you guys, right? Because the floor, again, is $170 million. That's what they're going to propose at the next CBA. So let's come back over here. How many teams are over $250 million? 6. 6 teams are over $250 million, which is the salary cap. 15 teams are below the salary floor. So if a salary cap and salary floor were implemented for next year, 15 of these teams would be in the red. They would have to up their spending. So who you mad at again? I'm just breaking down the numbers here. And I want my team to spend. I want Steve Cohen to spend money. Spend that money, baby. I spend $1 billion. I don't give a shit. I just want one championship. Well, if we win one championship, I'm totally fine. It's just like the Knicks. And if we really care about fairness, you better make sure that we institute both a salary cap and a salary floor. Because at the end of the day, I'm not convinced there's a perfect answer here. A salary cap probably creates more parity, but it also limits what players can earn. So what's more important here? Rewarding the teams that are willing to invest, or making sure that every city starts the season believing this could finally be their year? I'm not sure, but the ones that are willing to spend the money, that's how our system works in every facet of our economy. And that's how it works in the world. You spend money, you get a return. You don't spend money, you pretty much don't get a return. All right, next topic. Shit, we're going to get into this right here. You going to feel it right now. We about to go, shit. Oh, shit, this topic going to get. Oh shit! Oh shit! We about to knock the top off over here. Oh shit! Shit! A French trans basketball player wants a WNBA shot. Yeah, that's how it goes. And that's her, Julie Titart. She said she wouldn't turn down an offer to play in the WNBA amid debates on the participation of trans athletes in women's sports. Sophie Cunningham from The Fever said that this would be unfair should any trans player join the WNBA, and she wants to protect young players. So that's her stance. And it's just really easy to ridicule someone like this, just because of the nature of where we stand here in society. But they're allowing it in France, and I don't think we should really be mad at it. That's my first take on this. And of course, every time you see something like this, it restarts one of the biggest political debates in America. However, we're going to get to something that's extremely important here, because we're going to get to the numbers, and we're going to tell the story here. So we're going to get to some, let's look at some of the comments really quick, because I mean, people, so the WNBA is back to being a joke anyway, so why not let this man play? He said female. I get that there's a debate over man versus woman, but male versus female is based on genetics and is not open for debate. He is a male, XY. Well, when women wanted to and started playing in men's leagues of any sport, it was just a matter of time before the pendulum swung the other way. This is equality. It's absurd, but equality. It only stops when biological females play in only women's sports leagues and vice versa. Men do not belong in women's sports, period. Why not let any man play in the WNBA at this point? I feel bad for the women who have to compete against him. It's so unfair. How can anyone in their right mind be cool with this? So again, I feel bad for this person, right? Now, clearly, she knows what she's getting into, right? Every one of these photos puts her out there to be scrutinized. And it's just so easy to scrutinize someone like this, right? I mean, like, and it shouldn't be easy, because we got to be human at the end of the day. I don't know what to say. When I was going to cover this topic, I was just like, this sucks, right? But what I really want to get to, it sucks that we're so divided about this, right? And as a matter of fact, my opinion is yes. I don't think that person, I think at best, you should just form a different league, because you have to have some competitive balance, right? It's just, I don't even know what you're watching at that point if you don't have that competitive balance. So men's sports, women's sports, again, if you want to say that you don't agree with gender roles, that's up to you. But when it comes to sports, this is how it works in today's society. It really should be that simple. But at the same time, we have to be honest about how this issue was presented to the American public and how we continue to discuss it going forward. Because politicians, they took advantage of this, including President Trump. They made it sound like transgender athletes were taking over women's sports, and they are not. It became a major campaign issue. It became a political firestorm. President Trump in particular went after it over and over again, constantly, because he knew it was a hot topic and that many people would react strongly to it. That shows you how strategic he was in his campaign. But how many transgender athletes were actually competing when the president of the NCAA testified before Congress? He said he knew of fewer than 10 transgender athletes among the more than 500,000 NCAA athletes. Fewer than 10. Do you guys want me to do the math on that? We were fooled. We were conned. What is that right there? I don't even know what that is. What is that? 2 over 10,000? What the hell is that? That's 0.00004 2%. 0.00002%. That's how many transgender athletes there were in the NCAA. We don't have trans athletes running around everywhere. What we do have is fear mongering. And that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't make them feel any comfort. It does a disservice to our own countrymen, our own species. We're just alienating our own species. They're not harming anyone. They just want to be accepted. And by the way, if you speak to a trans person, I mean, what do you think you're going to get? You think they're just going to be crazy and deranged? No. I hope everybody, actually, I wish more people got exposure to trans people. They're just like you and I. They just want to be accepted. They just want to be loved. There's no difference. I think people just have this fear like it's going to just upend society. So we spent years having one of the loudest political arguments in the country over something involving an incredibly small number of athletes. Aren't you mad at President Trump for doing something like that? Little bait and switch. I mean, it's deceit, right? That does not mean the fairness question is irrelevant. I do think it would be unfair if an athlete like this played in the WNBA. Even one athlete can affect another athlete's roster spot. If you believe women's divisions should be reserved for biological women, that's a completely understandable position, and I agree with it. But that still does not mean this was ever a widespread crisis. It doesn't mean that the reaction we had collectively was warranted. You can oppose biological men competing in women's sports while also recognizing that politicians took an extremely rare situation and elevated it into a defining national issue. Why would they do that? Well, because they were trying to fool you. They were trying to take advantage. This was never happening on the scale people were led to believe. Again, 10 athletes out of 500,000. There were barely any athletes to begin with. So why did it become such a dominant political conversation? Because it worked politically, and they will do anything they have to. We have seen mudslinging at the grandest scale in the 21st century. It created anger. It stoked fear. It gave politicians an easy issue where they could make a simple declaration, generate applause, and convince voters that they were protecting women's sports from an immediate threat. What do you think President Trump or any of these politicians are doing on the podium? They're performing. And they want adulation, and they want confirmation. You applauding when they say no men in women's sports is validation for them that they're doing the right thing. And psychologically, it tells you, yeah, this person's on my side because I'm already agreeing with them on just one of the many topics that concern me. But it never really concerned you to begin with, right? It only became an issue because they started talking about it. You see the psychology at play here? That's how you win a campaign. And now we finally have a player openly saying, give me a chance to play in the WNBA. So now there's an actual person and an actual possible case to discuss. Should the WNBA consider her? You're entitled to your opinion. Would players object it? Would fans accept it? Those are real questions. If this ever moves beyond a headline. But let's not rewrite history here. Let's not pretend this was some enormous problem that politicians had no choice but to address. It was not. Now, the politicians will say it is because, of course, they want your vote. But they'll also continue to say it because they want to rewrite history. That's extremely dangerous. That's Orwellian. And whether it's Orwellian or not, it doesn't matter. It's wrong. I at least want the facts about history to remain intact. They can easily be destroyed, manipulated. The people in power do that. This was a rare issue that became politically valuable. That's the real story here. Not just whether this player should be allowed into the WNBA, but how an issue involving almost nobody, 10 out of 500,000 athletes in the NCAA, became one of the loudest public debates in American politics. All right, next topic. Oh, you want fear mongering? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. We gonna get it. Oh, shit. This one gonna be juicy. I feel bad for this guy. I really do. All right. Abdul El Sayed, Michigan Democrats' new progressive Senate nominee. Now, before we get into the juicy stuff, we got to clear the way here. We got to give you his bio. He is 41 years old. He is born in Detroit, Michigan, before somebody says he's born in some terrorist nation. He is the son of Egyptian immigrants like I am. He is a physician and public health expert. His education, University of Michigan, Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University, and earned his MD from Columbia University. His previous roles: former executive director of the Detroit Health Department, former Wayne County Health Director. He previously ran for Michigan governor in 2018 as a progressive Democrat. He has now won the 2026 Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate in Michigan and will face Republican Mike Rogers in November. Oh, yeah. Now, this woman over here, Haley Stevens, I'm going to say one thing and one thing only. Yeah? I'm not against her. I don't know enough about her. But I do know that she took $60 million in APAC money. $60 million. That's not a little money. That's a lot of money in politics. That's how you win a state like Michigan. 60 million for a Democratic primary. And APAC, just so you know what APAC is, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They are a prominent U.S. lobbying group headquartered in Washington, D.C. that advocates for policy strengthening the relationship between the United States and Israel. Now, me, if I ever ran for senator, governor, mayor, whatever, I'll take APAC money. But it ain't going to come with conditions, that's for sure. Because El-Sayed, you know what he was running on? No ties with Israel, penalties for Israel, as I think we all feel. He didn't take any APAC money, and he made sure to denounce Israel as globally we are. The only two people in Israel's corner, the only two groups of people in Israel's corner are a group of politicians in the United States and Israel. Now, what is he running on? See if this resonates with you. Healthcare, Medicare for all, single-payer healthcare, lower prescription drug costs, expanding access to mental health care, protecting reproductive rights and abortion access. On the economy, he wants to tax billionaires and large corporations more heavily. He wants to raise wages, strengthen labor unions. He opposes corporate influence. He opposes corporate influence in politics, and he refused corporate PAC donations and says his campaign is funded by individual donors. On working families, he wants universal childcare, paid family leave, affordable housing, and he wants to work to lower the cost of living for middle-class families. On immigration, he supports comprehensive immigration reform, supports securing the border while arguing that ICE should be abolished and replaced with a different immigration enforcement system. On the climate and environment, he wants to invest in clean energy, protect clean air and water, and expand renewable energy. Campaign financing, he wants to reduce the influence of wealthy donors and super PACs in politics, and he has emphasized taking only individual contributions rather than corporate PAC money. And lastly, on foreign policy, he has been highly critical of Israel's conduct in Gaza. He supports a ceasefire and opposes most U.S. military aid overseas, though he has said there are limited circumstances where U.S. intervention can be justified, such as Ukraine or the Balkans. So in one line, Abdul El-Sayed is a progressive Democrat whose campaign centers on Medicare for all, stronger unions, taxing the wealthy, reducing corporate influence in politics, affordable childcare and housing, climate action, and a more critical U.S. approach toward Israel. Do you agree with that? Doesn't sound like a bad candidate to me. Now, you know what you're going to end up hearing? He's Muslim. Abdul. Oh, we're going to play the videos here. He's Muslim. You can't let a Muslim in the U.S. government. He's progressive. He's communist. He's socialist. Who gives a shit? But you know why they call out those labels? Because they know it works. You know who it doesn't work on? Me. I don't give a shit. You could scream out loud till the cows come home. I don't give a shit. A, by default, I don't trust politicians. B, I don't give a shit what you are or what you claim to be. I got to read what you're offering and see whether you're worthy to vote for or not. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't just vote party lines. I want to see what you're all about. And as I read what his campaign promises are, what he's running on, sounds fair to me. Sounds good for the United States as a whole to me. What he actually implements, who knows? But so far, so good. This is nothing to hate this man for. Why can't we just be honest in politics? It's because it's just such a disgusting race. You remember when this woman at a town hall got up? I mean, I could get the video right now, but let's see if I could find this shit. Yeah, right here.
Can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's an Arab. He is not. No,
ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about. He's not. Thank you.
You know, there wasn't even a resounding applause there. And I kind of feel bad for that woman. A lot of people called her racist. I mean, I literally Googled, like I looked up racist woman, McCain, town hall, whatever. Do you see how she's like trembling when she says the word? It's like she's looking for validation. I don't want to fucking psychoanalyze this shit, but look at this.
he is not. No,
ma'am.
She says he's an Arab, and McCain's like, no, he's not. And she goes, no, I wasn't supposed to say that. Is that not cool? And he's just like, no. And then he proceeds to say, no, this man is of good character. I just disagree with him on policy. Like a true diplomat, like a true professional, a respectful gentleman. That's who McCain was. And this woman, I mean, again, a lot of people didn't even applaud. It should have been a resounding applause because, I mean, look at what she said. He's an Arab. He's an Arab. He wasn't born here. It was that type of mudslinging that gets you in that position to even win. You got to play the game, right? I kind of don't blame these people. But guess what? A lot of people don't see through the bullshit. This is bullshit. This type of fear-mongering, a lot of people don't see through it. And by the way, they also understand the tactic. They use this in the World Wrestling Federation, y'all. They use this in wrestling. If you tell somebody something enough times, they're going to believe it. You know why? There's a whole fucking list of reasons. And right at the top of the list, they ain't got time to question you, especially when you're in a position of authority. You think people are questioning Trump? Even on the state, like, even on the subject of Israel, everyone in the United States knows and probably feels that we should not be supporting Israel while they conduct a genocide. Yet, President Trump will stand there day in and day out and says, if you denounce Israel, you're an anti-Semite. You're being anti-Semitic. Every day he defends Israel. Every single day. The people know better, but they dare not object to him. How crazy is that? Because for the Trump supporters out there, the true Trump supporters, they obey his word for literally everything else that they say. For literally everything that he says. But when it comes to that one caveat, which is Israel, people know better, yet they still accept it. And Trump knows that. He's not a fool. He's taking advantage of his positional power. So now let's get into it, because we got some videos, man, and fuck. I mean, some of this shit is just disgusting. Let's go to Mamdani first. Let's hear what he has to say. He says some really nice things about him.
Save America? Are we going to maintain our status as the world's greatest superpower and beacon of liberty, opportunity, and security, or allow radical Marxist Democrats to destroy the very foundations that make us the envy of the entire world? And he has a new paragraph. Democrats now openly express disdain for America and embrace the failed dangerous, deadly path of communism, we must take a stand and fight to protect the greatest nation in the history of the world from being overrun by mini Mamdanis. So,
That's a lot of characters. You must have the pro account. Well, I'm assuming that's in response to Abdul El-Sayed's victory yesterday evening. And I think first I'd just like to congratulate Dr. Abdul El-Sayed on his victory. He ran a campaign where it was best described by his words of money out of politics, money in your pocket, Medicare for all. And if those simple commitments and beliefs are what drives Representative Johnson to these kinds of conclusions, I think it shows you how deeply out of touch the Republican Party is with the concerns of working class Americans. Because what we have seen is, despite him facing more than $60 million in outside spending, he was able to prevail with a focus on a cost of living crisis and the way in which healthcare is exceedingly out of reach for those who have helped to make this country what it is.
Comparison in your similar things that you ran on.
You know, I have had the privilege of speaking to Dr. El-Sayed a few times. What I will say, and this was years ago, once when he came to New York City, he can lift a lot more than I can. And I think that is, we should give him his respect in that way. I don't think in any way this man is a mini Mamdani. I also think that what we're talking about is someone who has shone a light on the importance of public health and healthcare in our country for years. And I am proud to be part of a movement of politicians and candidates who are looking to put working class Americans back at the heart of our politics. And that's our focus here in New York City. And just from what we're seeing in Michigan, it looks like that's what Michiganders want there to be their focus come November.
That's how you want that's how you want your politician to speak, no? And by the way, this was the tweet by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. There is an urgent question facing America. Are we going to maintain our status as the world's great superpower and beacon of liberty, or allow radical Marxist Democrats to destroy the very foundations that make us the envy of the entire world? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I criticize Mamdani when I have to. I scrutinize things. I got questions. I have the freedom of speech to do so. He's not the perfect candidate. So far, I got no problem with him. This grocery store idea, I just want to see if it works or not. Guess what? If it fails, we learn something, we move on. At least he tried something novel. At least he's trying. His heart's clearly in the right place. It's not the same as President Trump, where left and right, you're seeing him make deals with crypto, with foreign nations. I mean, come on. Like, Mamdani's only been here for what, 8 months? But I'm not screaming out corruption. You're going to tell me that you are a physician, public health expert. I mean, look at how educated he is. University of Michigan, Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University, and earned his MD from Columbia University. What? Former executive director of the Detroit Health Department. What do you think? This guy's a terrorist? You think he has no brain? You got to hear El-Sayed speak. You got to hear him speak. He's a really intelligent guy. And that's all you got? That's all you got? Muslim? He's Muslim? He can't cut it because he's a terrorist? That's all you got, Trump? That's all you got, Republican Party? Look at this. We're not even done yet.
This could only happen to me. Abdul El-Sayed, lovely gentleman, the man of hate. And now he's going around saying, no, I love everybody. He doesn't love everybody.
I still can't imagine it until I see it, because I would never do something like this. So it's completely out of my, it really sits outside of like my realm. I could never imagine myself saying something like this, speaking like this. But if I'm a Trump supporter, I'd be mad if he didn't speak like this, because not only do people think, yeah, he's real, he's speaking to the layman, but this is how you win. So if you're trying to win a campaign at all costs and you have to smear, you got to sling some mud. I mean, this was frowned upon. If you look back in history, anytime our politicians did this, since 1776, it was always frowned upon. At least that's how history was written. That's what I read and learned growing up. You didn't want to smear your opponent. You just wanted to put forth a better policy, show some candor, show that you care about the nation, about your constituents and try to win that way. But now, I mean, and by the way, it wasn't just Trump. It happened, I think, in every presidency. There were little bits and pieces of mudslinging that you could identify. However, the floodgates opened with Donald Trump. I mean, there were just no rules. There was nothing to abide by, no boundaries. He wanted to win at all costs, and he did. And this is how you win, right? I would expect the Republican primary candidate, Mike Rogers, I would expect him to do the same. And I'm not saying he should, but I'm saying, I mean, this is legal, right? I don't think this is a good thing. I think it's immoral to do something like this, but he's probably going to resort to these tactics. This is how you win, right? Now let's look at spineless. And by the way, man, when he says he hates Israel. Yeah, I hate Israel too. Yeah, I hate Israel. I cannot stand what Israel is doing right now. I hate it. I mean, I don't know if I could say I hate Israel. I mean, that doesn't really make sense, but I hate what Israel is doing. I can't stand it. I don't want them to. What else is there to say? I feel cliche talking about stuff like this because it's just like, what? It's like, doesn't everybody know this? Apparently they don't. Apparently we have a president that is compromised. And I'm not going to say that he knows better. The world knows better. The rest of the world that doesn't want Israel to continue what they're doing against the Palestinian people, we know better. I don't give a shit about what one politician says or even a cohort of them. So the fact that he's saying Abdul al-Sayed hates Israel, yeah, most of the world hates what Israel is doing. Correct yourself, President Trump. There's nothing wrong with saying that. That is not being anti-Semitic. Just because Jewish people live there, that's not being anti-Semitic. That's just saying, hey, I disagree with what Israel is doing. You want to extrapolate, right? You want to make it about race. And you can if you want to win an election. If people aren't smart enough to see through the bullshit, they're going to accept what you're saying. And that's why he's saying it to begin with. Now let's go to, I used to like this guy, but let's go to spineless John Fetterman. I mean, there's nothing else to say. You got to hear what he has to say. He's just flip-flopping back and forth. I mean, where's your spine, man? Again, I don't understand why. I just don't understand why. It's not even like, you don't have to be anti-Israel. You just have to say, like, you're the one in power. It's like they got you by the balls. All of our politicians, they have them by the balls. You can't just say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. It's against my values. I don't want to kill people. And until you don't, I'm voting against you. I don't give a fuck about your AIPAC money. But that's just not how our politicians operate. It's sad. It's a travesty, to be honest.
Joining us here in the situation right now is Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. I know you've criticized several of el-Sayed's progressive policies. You've been involved in a public dispute with him as well. What's your reaction to his victory that we've not projected in this key battleground state of Michigan?
Well, I think it definitely puts the seat in play. Michigan typically doesn't really elect a Republican in the Senate for a while. And now Rogers was a very strong candidate, objectively. He barely lost to Slotkin, and she's a very strong candidate, and she just barely won back then. So now, if you've seen some of the polling, el-Sayed is under maybe 5 to 6 points or more against him. And now some real money is going to flood into that state. And a lot of the things that he has done and said during the primary, we're going to come back to haunt, like campaigning with a guy that loves Hamas and is very proud to stand with communist regimes.
So you're talking about Hassan Piker?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
who was out there with el-Sayed on the campaign trail. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to find out what he really thinks. Is he still going to campaign with a guy that proud to love Hamas? We'll see. Are you going to campaign with a guy that...
Okay, hold on. First of all, he's talking about Hassan Piker. If you don't know who Hassan Piker is, he's a really famous YouTuber. He's really well known, and he is campaigning right now with Abdul al-Sayed. So he was in Michigan with him, and his stance on Hamas was this, right? And I'm just his stance was that Hamas is the lesser evil. So during an appearance on the Pod Save America podcast, Piker stated that as a lesser evil voter, he would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time. He has characterized Hamas members as orphan soldiers born into a 77-year occupation and asserted they have a right to resist militarily. And of course, he got condemned for it. But does that mean he's pro-Hamas? No, I think he's like the rest of us, which is, I mean, you want to call him left-wing, you want to call him radical, you want to call him progressive. That shit doesn't mean anything to me. Like, I don't give a shit about any of that. I don't care about any of that. From what I've seen with Hassan Piker, it seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. I think he's like most of us that don't want to see a genocide. I mean, like, if you want to see a genocide continue, you have the problem. And again, like, I just feel like it's so cliche, but it's not, because it's actually happening, and Palestinians are actually going through it right now as we speak. But it's like, I mean, how? Like, the world is crying foul right now. When you wanted the world to cry foul during the Holocaust, they did. And ultimately, everyone stepped up and killed Hitler. And now you're doing the same. And I know that everyone draws this parallel, but I just have to put it out there again so we could just start thinking about it, right? I mean, what is Hassan Piker saying on Hamas? Is he saying, I love Hamas? No, he's saying, I'm choosing the lesser evil. And if you think that that's going to stop El Sayed from winning John Fetterman, I think you got another thing coming. I mean, I don't know who's going to win that race. It's probably going to be extremely tight, but let's just continue hearing what John Fetterman has to say.
That openly loved Mao and even dresses like him too for events. So overall, you're going to find out he was he had a very arrogant campaign, and now today he just discovered that less than a majority of your state's only Democrats didn't even want you and vote for you. You came in around 48%. So you have a real situation as Democrats now that puts that seat in play.
President Trump just moments ago called El Sayed's projected victory in Michigan, and I'm quoting Trump now, great news for the Republican Party, labeling El Sayed a, quote, communist loser who hates Jews and Israel, end quote. How do you respond to what the president is saying, and do you agree with his assessment?
I'm saying objectively, as a Democrat that understands how to win a competitive state, it's like it does put it in play. And 100% the Republicans were eager to run against him, and that's where we are. And now you see how close it was, 14,000 votes out of 1.5 million votes, and now that's a divided primary. And he has said a lot of negative things towards her and other people. And now I think he's going to find out that he has to mend fences, as he said. Well, I guess we'll see.
Considering El Sayed's win in Michigan, and we've now projected he is the winner in the Michigan primary, are you willing to consider that perhaps you are the Democrat missing what voters want from their candidates? So for me, what this candidate, I have a great relationship with the vast majority of Democrats. We have really great candidates across the map in Ohio, Georgia, in Texas. We have great ones. But I have a real problem with people that are proud to campaign people that love Hamas or that they love communist kinds of regime and under those kinds of policies overall. And that's why I'm saying objectively as a Democrat in the Senate, saying that puts that seat in danger. And now that could, and now people like Sanders, after what he's done in Maine with Plattner, and now it's like it's creating more kinds of chaos. And now it's like, will you own?
With base 44, a simple sentence.
So it's important to call out that John Fetterman actually has not taken AIPAC money, which is interesting. But just the way that he defends Israel, it's either one of two things, right? When it comes to defending Israel, you're either saying that Israel is a necessary ally in the Middle East, or you're compromised, or you're fucking stupid. I mean, you're just stupid. Or you're just really stupid and you're just like, doy. It's just, I don't know what else to say. You could just be really stupid, right? Or just not give a shit, right? I mean, listen, you're going to have every type of person on the spectrum. So this guy seems like a great candidate, right? You got to hear him out. Again, from Michigan, son of Egyptian immigrants, physician and public health expert, super intelligent. I mean, what he's running on, all things look good, and he's been given the green light by the Democratic Party. So we'll see what happens come November. And the fact that Trump is putting a spotlight on him, I think only helps his case, by the way. So, all right, let's get into our next topic. This one's just fucked up, man. But we got to talk about this shit because I've been thinking about this one. I'm like, damn. So should drones that hunt humans become a war crime? Now I'm going to show you 2 videos and let's speak a little bit about it first. We're asking, should drones, which is modern warfare, that track, chase, and kill a person become a new category of war crime? The way a drone is used can absolutely make it a war crime. International law doesn't focus on the weapon itself. It focuses on how it's used. Whether it's a sniper rifle, missile, artillery, or a drone, the same questions apply. Was the target a legitimate military target? Were civilians intentionally targeted? Were reasonable precautions taken to avoid civilian casualties? Was the attack proportional to the military objective? Those are the questions that determine whether an attack is legal or a war crime. So let's take a look at a couple of videos here. And again, I don't even know, it might get blocked. This first one is a Russian soldier that's in a field and he gets tracked with a drone. You're not going to see him die, but it is going to take it right up until that point. And that's how precise these targets are, right? They're essentially kamikaze drones, suicide drones. They're going right into the individual and blowing them up. And they cost like what? A few $100s, a few $1,000s? How valuable is military personnel? Now let's get into this. This next video is really tough, and I got to stop it at the point that the man actually gets killed. But this is a drone actually following him around. This is in Ukraine. So we'll cut that off in, when we edit. But I mean, the man stands no chance, right? You got to take cover. You got to get out of there. I mean, I don't even know how you avoid something like that. So these new FPV drones can follow a person. They can chase a vehicle. They can fly through windows, navigate around obstacles, and continue pursuing someone until they strike. That feels fundamentally different from firing a missile or taking a single sniper shot. However, there are 2 arguments to be had here, and they're very interesting. Because on one hand, you could argue that these drones are actually more humane because they're more precise. If they can eliminate one enemy soldier instead of leveling an entire building with artillery, they could reduce civilian casualties. On the other hand, many people would argue that allowing machines to hunt human beings feels fundamentally inhumane, even if they're more accurate. And it's about to become an even bigger debate. We have a ton of companies. I invest heavily in the market. I trade and invest. And we have a ton of drone companies right now. And they can't build them fast enough because you see how we're depleting our arsenals. Ukraine, Russia, us giving weapons to Israel, us giving weapons to NATO. Today, most military drones still have a human making the final decision, but what happens when what is going to happen rather when artificial intelligence can identify the target? Because at that point, it's going to make the decision when to strike. And if AI gets that wrong, who's responsible? Is it the programmer? Is it the commander? And that's why governments and international organizations are debating right now whether autonomous weapons need entirely new rules. But whether these are autonomous or not, they're still drones. And we come back to the premise here. Should this be considered a war crime? Is it fundamentally inhumane? I don't think the real question here is whether drones are legal. Because You could use drones to provide military aid, to get some type of device out there on the field, to do some reconnaissance. But we have to draw a line somewhere. And maybe that line is machines should never be allowed to hunt human beings ever, even during warfare. However, if we make a declaration here, as far as international law is concerned, and we say, well, it would save more civilian lives than traditional weapons, this could actually be the preferred way to fight. So that's the debate right now being had around the world. And I don't think the laws of war have fully caught up with the technology yet. So right now, there's nothing instituted on the battlefield. This is perfectly legal. What you just saw is perfectly legal. I just can't wrap my head around that. All right, next topic, and it's our final topic. And this one's gonna be fun. Oh shit. This one's gonna be fun. Oh shit. They're all fun. If I'm not having fun with it, then I don't want to do the show. All right. Do we actually need therapy, or do we need better lives? Oh shit, what a harsh question to ask. The second part of that question is pretty harsh. Now let's get into it. Because what if the reason you're in therapy isn't because you need therapy? It's because your life isn't fulfilling. Now, everyone has been depressed in their lives. It doesn't matter who it is. You could be God-fearing. You could be the happiest person in the world. You're so happy. I'm always happy. I'm so happy. I got one of my friends. I call him my rich, happy friend. It's my best friend. I call him my rich, happy friend. You know why? He's always happy. He's always jolly. You know, he's always happy. I'm like, how you doing today, buddy? He's like, I'm happy. Nah, he doesn't say he's happy, but you know what I'm saying, right? I don't give a shit who you are in the world. You get depressed from time to time. That's just the way it works. Today, if you're anxious, people say go to therapy. If your relationship is struggling, go to therapy. If you're stressed at work, go to therapy. But shouldn't we first ask why so many people feel that way? To me, the goal shouldn't be therapy. The goal should be fulfillment. And when I say fulfillment, I'm not talking about some motivational buzzword. I'm talking about self-actualization, becoming the person you're capable of becoming and that you want to become. That means meaningful work, friends, family, finding community, being financially stable, God willing, you're in good health, and goals that get you excited to wake up every morning. Because if you're missing those things, is therapy solving the problem, or is it helping you cope with the problem? To me, if one of those areas is devoid of attention, then I think our reaction is to go and find a therapist. Oh, by the way, therapy costs money. It's a luxury to have it. But even if you were to seek therapy, if that person didn't point you into that direction, the right direction, which is, I don't know, let's say you weren't taking care of your health and your therapist is not telling you that, I would say that that's not good therapy. Because to me, you have to take care of this foundation. We all need friends. We all need family. We all need community. We all need meaningful work. That's how you derive happiness, isn't it? That's how you live some semblance of a stable life. I don't know how to be happy. I just know how to get into cruise control. And maybe that's not right. Maybe I need therapy. I don't know. I've tried it. My therapist fell asleep on me. Yeah, she started dozing off. And I'm like, listen, hey, I'm like knocking on the screen because it was like virtual. I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm paying for this. She didn't care. She's tired. It was probably like her 8th patient that day. She doesn't give a shit. She's like, hey, come on, hurry up with your sob story. And I'm like, what is this? So then I stopped going to therapy, and I know what everybody's going to say. Oh, well, that's your problem right there, Shoy. You got to find a better therapist. You got to interview them. It's like a job. I ain't got time for that shit. Oh, well, then you don't really care. You don't really care about your happiness. You don't really care about your life. And look, I don't mean to trivialize this, okay? I don't mean to mimic, or I don't mean to belittle therapy. I actually think therapy can be extremely valuable. And I think that most of us need it. But what I'm saying is, what form are you getting it in? I'm not saying that I don't need therapy, but can I get therapy by speaking to one of my friends? Because isn't that what therapy is? Isn't it paying for a friend? And I know people are going to get up in arms about this, and they're going to say, no, that's not what it is. I understand what therapy is. At least I think I do. You have a burden of problems on your shoulders, and you're juggling every aspect of your life. In order for you to be able to move forward and balance those things, you need to speak to someone to alleviate you of that pressure. That's where therapy comes in. And then you can see clearer. You can live a more cogent and healthy life. Because a lot of the anxiety gets extinguished by speaking to someone. And when you speak to a stranger and a therapist versus a friend, it's much more objective. It's less biased. So there are advantages to therapy. However, I'm saying that ultimately that's going to steer you back to the core of what we're saying, which is that you need friends and family and community and good health. You still need all of those things. And by the way, for the people that say you need therapy, do you need therapy? Do you need therapy if everyone can't afford it? I have a lot of criticisms about therapy, and that's one of the big ones. The majority of us can't afford it. So what do you say then? I can totally understand that argument. I also understand that not everyone has a friend that they can call. Not everyone has family they're comfortable opening up to. People have their own lives. They're not always available. So I understand why someone would want to talk to a therapist instead. But here's where I struggle with the argument. Shouldn't we also be trying to build lives where we don't have to carry so much weight in the first place? Balance. We need balance first. Because again, if therapy is only reserved for the select few, because it's just unattainable because of cost, what are the rest of us supposed to do? We have to strive for some balance. We have to strive to reinforce the core tenets of our life. We're constantly talking about depression, anxiety, despair, but we're also living through an epidemic of loneliness, modern day loneliness, being stuck to this all day. People have fewer close friends, families are more disconnected, communities aren't what they used to be. Can 1 hour of therapy each week actually replace that? Again, I'm not just trying to be anti-therapy here, but I think these are fair questions. Another thing I've always wrestled with is this. Therapy isn't really about getting advice. It's not like you sit down and someone tells you exactly how to fix your life. It's more about opening up, talking through your thoughts, getting that emotional weight off your shoulders. Again, I understand the logic, but eventually, don't you have to start doing instead of just talking? So isn't it just delaying the inevitable by going to these sessions? And I know things take time, triple T's, right? Things take time. Sometimes you're just in a lull. But if you hate your job, if you're lonely, if your relationships are unhealthy, if you're neglecting your health, and these are the things that you're complaining about, at some point, the answer has to be changing your life. Every distraction that pulls you away from your purpose also pulls you. It could be a tool, but again, isn't it just delaying the inevitable? You still have to get up and act. And the further you get from fulfillment, the emptier life starts to feel. Now, maybe therapy is part of getting back on track. I can absolutely accept that. Where I struggle is when therapy becomes the destination instead of the tool. The destination should be a life filled with purpose, strong relationships, meaningful work, a community, people who love you, and people you love back. So maybe the real question isn't, do we need therapy? Maybe it's, are we treating emotional pain, or are we ignoring the fact that too many people are living lives that simply aren't fulfilling? Thank you for watching. See you next time.